dig into this.
Yeah.
You know that feeling, right? Just completely swamped by information.
Oh, absolutely.
It feels like we're all swimming in data articles, research, even just our own notes, but actually making sense of it all,
Yeah.
structuring it so it's like useful and really reliable. That feels almost impossible sometimes.
It's a massive challenge. And it's especially tough when you're trying to build, say, intelligent AI systems.
Yeah.
Because AI, particularly the more advanced systems like the ones being developed under the CAFA initiative, that's CAFA, they don't just need raw data.
Right.
They need that information organized. They need clear, reliable structures. Think of them almost like detailed maps of knowledge.
Maps of knowledge, I like that.
Without those maps, the AI just can't operate consistently. It can't be reliable.
Exactly. And that's really where we come in with the deep dive. We take this complex source material, could be academic papers, research notes, things like that, and we guide you through it.
Yeah, we pull out the really important stuff, the key insights. Moments, hopefully. So for this deep dive, we're looking at a really fascinating lecture note. It's by Associate Professor Jae-Woo Choi from George Washington University.
Okay.
And he's the principal investigator of that CAFA initiative we just mentioned. His work is all about, well, how we can speed up the creation of those crucial knowledge structures.
And this source, it focuses on a framework called OMEGA. That stands for Ontology Model Emulation by Generative AI.
Right, Omega. And it connects directly to a core idea within the whole CAFA framework, which they call OMG, Ontology Model-centered Generation.
OMG. Okay. So what's the big idea there?
Well, the core concept behind OMG is pretty simple, but it's powerful. It's about grounding AI, especially these large language models. Everyone's talking about grounding them in these structured knowledge bases, these ontology models.
Okay, grabbing them in facts, essentially.
Exactly. And the argument, which this source definitely reinforces, is that doing this makes the AI significantly better, like noticeably more reliable, more consistent,
More trustworthy.
much more trustworthy in how it actually processes information and generates responses.
Which sounds absolutely vital, especially in fields where you just can't afford mistakes. The note mentions things like COREA.
Yeah, COREA. That's an initiative focused on AI in education. The aim there is to create a trusted knowledge base that's aligned with school curricula.
Because you definitely can't have an AI helping students or teachers if it's just, making stuff up or getting basic facts wrong.
Precisely. Or think about AGNES, which is for nursing education,
Mhm.
or PEAKS for business strategy,
Right.
or AoA PEARL, which focuses on adaptive learning and responsible AI systems. All of these depend fundamentally on having these really solid, structured knowledge foundations.
Okay, but here's the catch, right? The huge problem that Omega is trying to solve.
Exactly.
Building these essential ontology models traditionally. Well, the source makes it sound incredibly hard.
Oh, it is. Painfully slow, ridiculously expensive. The note actually calls it a digital knowledge acquisition bottleneck.
A bottleneck, okay.
And think about it, if creating that fundamental structure, that trustworthy map, is too difficult or costs too much to do at scale.
Then all those benefits you were talking about from OMG, the better accuracy, the explainability, the reliability.
It just can't be fully realized. The bottleneck basically stops progress in its tracks.
Okay, so that's our mission for this deep dive then.
Yeah.
We need to really unpack this bottleneck. Why is it such a problem?
Yeah, what makes it so hard?
And then how does Omega use AI to, well, try and smash through it? What does it actually take to make Omega work in practice?
What are the real benefits if you get it right?
And yeah, how is this actually being used in projects like COREA, AGNES, and the others the source mentions?
Okay, let's start with the problem itself, the bottleneck. The source really lays it out clearly. The path to that smarter, more reliable AI, the ONG vision, it's blocked.
Blocked because building the necessary knowledge structures, those ontology models, is just such hard manual work.
Exactly. It's incredibly arduous.
How arduous are we talking? What does the source say makes it so tough?
Well, first off, it just takes so much time. Historically, if you wanted to build an ontology, you were looking at countless hours interviewing experts in that field.
Right.
And then painstakingly sifting through just mountains of textbooks, standards, documents, research papers, you name it.
Trying to find the key concept.
Exactly. Identify the key concepts. And then this is often the harder part, figure out how they all relate to each other. And translating that human knowledge, which is often kind of fuzzy or informal, into a really precise, formal structure that a machine can actually use, that takes a huge amount of prolonged effort.
And it's not just any effort, is it? The note says it needs very specific expensive expertise.
That's a critical point. You absolutely need subject matter experts, people who know the domain inside and out, no question.
That's not enough.
No. You also need skilled ontology engineers or knowledge engineers. These are the people who understand the technical side, the sort of art and science of representing that knowledge formally so a machine can understand it and work with it.
And finding people with both deep domain knowledge and that technical skill.
It's rare, and yeah, consequently, it's expensive.
Okay.
And this combination, this duality of expertise needed, leads straight into the next massive challenge, scaling up.
Right. How do you do this for really big areas?
Exactly. Trying to build and, crucially, maintain comprehensive, detailed ontologies for really vast, complex domains, like imagine the entire K-12 national curriculum for Korea.
Wow, yeah.
Or the sheer breadth of medical knowledge needed for something like AGNES nursing education.
Yeah.
Or the constantly changing world of business strategy for peaks. It's almost impossible to scale that effectively if you're just relying on people doing it manually.
The complexity, the sheer volume of information, it just becomes overwhelming.
Completely unmanageable. And even if you somehow manage to build a large ontology,
Keeping it up to date must be a nightmare.
it's a massive ongoing job. Knowledge changes, right? New research comes out, facts get revised. The source points out that just maintaining consistency and integrating updates in these big structures requires really strict processes and continuous resources.
So you can really see the bottleneck now. If building that high-quality current knowledge foundation is too hard, too slow, too expensive.
Then that promise of better, more reliable AI through OMG, well, it just stays out of reach.
Okay, and this is where Omega comes in. The source presents it as the strategic answer, right?
Yeah.
Using these modern large language models, LLMs, to tackle the bottleneck head-on.
Precisely. But it's important to understand what Omega is and isn't. It's not about just asking an LLM to, magically create a perfect ontology from scratch.
Right, it's not push-button automation.
No, the source really emphasizes this. It's automation designed to assist humans, not replace them. It's a systematic process where LLMs are used strategically at different points.
But always with humans checking and validating.
Always with essential human oversight and validation. It's designed as a synergy.
Human and AI working together. So, walking through the process described in the source, where do the LLMs help first? Getting the data ready.
Yeah, they can help right at the start. They can assist in finding relevant documents from huge digital libraries, for example.
Okay.
Or summarizing really long texts to quickly pull out potential key concepts and relationships, maybe even helping process information that's in different languages. They do some of that initial heavy lifting with the information.
But the core acceleration, the really big AI boost, comes in the extraction part.
That seems to be the focus. This is where LLMs are used to identify specific terms or entities in the text that's often called named entity recognition, or NER.
So finding things like photosynthesis or mitochondria in a biology text.
Exactly. And then, crucially, they help with relationship extraction, identifying how these concepts are linked.
Like mitochondria generate energy, or DNA encodes proteins.
Precisely those kinds of connections. They might also help pinpoint specific attributes of concepts.
And the source mentions this requires careful prompt engineering.
Yeah.
You need to be good at telling the LLM exactly what to look for.
Absolutely. Crafting the right instructions, the right examples for the LLM is key to getting it to extract the specific kind of information you need, and maybe even structure it in a preliminary way. That's a skill in itself.
Okay, so extraction is key. Do LLMs also help with the actual structuring, putting the pieces together?
They can assist, yes. The source suggests they can propose ways concepts might be organized, maybe into hierarchies, or suggest logical groupings.
But humans have the final say on the structure.
Absolutely indispensable. The source is very clear on this. Human experts have to guide the overall structure. They ensure it's logically consistent, that it follows the formal rules needed for a proper ontology. The LLM might suggest, but the human decides.
Which leads us to what sounds like the most critical step: human validation and refinement.
This is non-negotiable in the Omega framework. Subject matter experts and those ontology engineers we talked about, they must meticulously review everything the LLM suggests.
They're the quality control.
They are the arbiters of truth, essentially. They validate the accuracy, they correct any errors the LLM made, they resolve ambiguities, and they make sure the final ontology truly and correctly reflects the actual knowledge of that domain.
Could the LLM help with that review process itself? Maybe by generating summaries or flagging things?
Potentially, yes. The source hints at things like generating summaries to make review easier, or maybe identifying areas where the LLM's output seems inconsistent, flagging those for human attention. But the final sign-off, the verification, that comes from the human experts.
Okay, so the humans check, refine, approve,
Mm-hmm.
and then it becomes a formal ontology model ready for use.
That's the idea. It gets formalized into a structure that AI systems can use for those OMG applications we discussed. The LLM's main role was to provide a high-quality draft, much faster than humans could alone, for the experts to then work with and perfect.
And the process doesn't stop there, right?
Yeah.
It accounts for knowledge changing over time. Maintenance.
Yes, that's part of the vision too. Domains evolve. Omega sees LLMs helping here as well, maybe by scanning new research papers or data sources.
Looking for new concepts or relationships.
Exactly. Or identifying potential changes needed, flagging inconsistencies with the existing ontology, and bringing those to the attention of the human experts for review and integration.
So the big takeaway here, which the source seems to repeat, is that Omega is not about AI replacing humans.
Not at all. It's about creating a really effective human-AI partnership. The LLM accelerates the tedious parts, the repetitive tasks.
Heavy lifting.
Yeah. But the humans provide the critical thinking, the validation, the refinement. They ensure the final knowledge structure is accurate, consistent, and ultimately trustworthy. It's fundamentally a human-in-the-loop approach, deliberately so.
Okay, so if you want Omega to actually work, to break that bottleneck, what do you need? What are the requirements mentioned in the source?
Well, there are several key ingredients.
First up, sounds like you need good data and good AI.
Definitely. High-quality data sources are fundamental. The LLM is only as good as the information it's processing, so you need relevant, reliable texts and data.
And capable LLM.
And capable LLMs, yeah. Powerful ones, maybe even models that have been specifically fine-tuned on data from that particular domain. They need to be good at understanding language and following complex instructions for extraction and structuring.
Okay, number 2, human expertise is still crucial.
Absolutely critical. And not just having the experts, but having effective ways for them to collaborate.
So you need the domain experts, the ontology engineers.
And those skilled prompt engineers to get the best out of the LLMs. And these different groups need to be able to communicate and work together smoothly. That collaboration piece is key.
Makes sense. Third requirement, good tools and methods.
Yes, robust methods and tools are non-negotiable. You need a well-defined, repeatable process for Omega with clear checkpoints for quality.
Like software.
Good ontology editing software, definitely. Software that can handle the output from LLMs. Things like version control become really important too, and established ways to measure the quality and completeness of the ontology as it's being built.
Okay. Fourth, it sounds like you need real commitment to checking and refining.
An unwavering commitment, yeah. Iterative refinement and validation. That human in the loop isn't just a single review at the end.
It's back and forth.
The source implies cycles. LLM assists, humans review, refine. Maybe the LLM assists, again, based on the feedback, more review. It's about gradually converging on what the source calls ontological commitment.
Which means?
Basically an agreed-upon, validated understanding and representation of the domain by the community of experts involved.
Got it. And the final requirement, being aware of the AI's limits.
Absolutely crucial. You have to have a deep awareness of LLM limitations.
Like making things up, hallucinations.
Hallucinations, yeah. Inventing facts. Or carrying biases picked up from their training data. The source really stresses that every single thing the AI assistant suggests must be critically evaluated and verified by the human experts.
You can't just trust it blindly.
Never. You have to use it as an incredibly powerful but ultimately fallible assistant.
Okay, so that covers how Omega works and what it needs. But the really exciting part, the reason this matters to you listening, is the payoff, the benefits. What do we actually gain by overcoming this bottleneck?
This is where you see the potential for real transformation. The number one benefit, according to the source, is just a massive jump in efficiency. And related to that, a significant reduction in cost.
Because you're automating parts of the process.
By semi-automating that initial extraction, the drafting, processing huge amounts of data, Omega can dramatically speed up the whole timeline. It cuts down on the sheer volume of human hours needed.
So what might have taken months, maybe even years for a big domain,
and cost a fortune in expert time,
could potentially be done much faster and for less money.
Exactly. And that speed and cost reduction directly enables better scalability.
Ah, right. making it possible to tackle those huge domains we talked about.
Precisely. Building ontologies for the entire national curriculum or whole scientific fields or those dynamic business environments, it starts to look genuinely feasible. Omega potentially unlocks the ability to map knowledge at a scale that was just impractical before.
And the source mentioned something about a dual goal benefit.
Yes, this is interesting. Omega helps create ontologies that work well for both humans and machines.
How so?
Well, the human experts need to understand the structure, they need to trust it, agree on it. Omega helps draft clear definitions and structures that the humans then refine and validate.
Okay.
But the final output is also formally structured in a way that AI systems can process and use effectively for those OMG tasks. So it bridges that gap between human understanding and machine usability.
That makes sense. And faster ontology building means faster AI development overall.
That's another key benefit. Faster prototyping and iteration. If you can build the knowledge base quicker, you can build and test the AI applications that rely on it much faster too.
So you get feedback faster, refine things more quickly.
Exactly. Both the AI system and the knowledge structure itself.
The source also hinted at making things more accessible. Democratization.
Yeah, there's potential there by lowering some of the technical hurdles, especially in the early stages.
The extraction and initial structuring.
Right. Omega could make it easier for domain experts, the people who really know the subject matter but aren't necessarily trained ontology engineers, to get more directly involved in structuring knowledge in their own fields.
Using the LLM as a kind of intelligent assistant to help formalize their expertise.
That's that idea.
And lastly, does it help with consistency?
When it's properly guided and validated by humans, yes. Omega can potentially help ensure greater consistency and maybe even more comprehensive coverage across a large knowledge base compared to purely manual methods where it's easy for inconsistencies to creep in over time.
So, taken together, these benefits, they really unlock the potential for that smarter, more reliable, more trustworthy AI.
Exactly, by making the creation and maintenance of those essential knowledge foundations practical and scalable at last.
Okay, let's make this concrete. The source gives examples of Omega actually being used, right, within that CAFA ecosystem.
And it does. A major one is COREA, the Curriculum Ontology Reservoir for Education via AI.
We mentioned that earlier, for K-12 education.
Right, and building a really detailed, comprehensive knowledge base for all of K-12 education, that's just a monumental task. Yeah. Huge amounts of content, complex relationships between topics.
So how does Omega help COREA?
It speeds things up dramatically. LLMs can be used to process curriculum documents, textbooks, educational standards.
To pull out the key stuff.
To do that initial extraction of concepts like specific learning objectives and identify relationships like which topics are prerequisites for others, the LLM might draft an initial structure or definitions.
Which human education experts and ontology engineers then check and fix.
Exactly. Validate and refine. And Omega principles can also help keep COREA up to date.
Oh.
By having LLMs scan new educational standards or research, maybe flagging areas where the ontology needs updating, or pointing out potential inconsistencies for the experts to look at.
Okay, COREA makes sense. What about AGNES? That was nursing education.
Right. AGNES needs to structure really complex medical and nursing knowledge.
So Omega would process nursing textbooks, clinical guidelines.
Exactly. Research papers, too. Extracting key nursing concepts, procedures, symptoms, treatments, and identifying how they relate. It could help build classifications of conditions or models of patient care workflows.
But validation there must be absolutely critical.
Paramount. The source stresses that experienced nursing professionals have to validate everything to ensure it's clinically accurate and safe. No shortcuts there.
Then there was Peaks for business strategy.
Yeah, Peaks applies Omega principles to business strategy and problem solving.
Which involves a lot of unstructured information, I imagine. Market reports, competitor analysis.
All sorts of things. Internal reports, news articles. Omega can help structure this by using LLMs to process these documents, pulling out key entities like competitors, products, market risks, strategic goals, and identifying relationships.
Like supply chain links or maybe cause and effect between actions and results.
Exactly. And again, business experts validate these structures to make sure they're relevant and actually useful for strategic decision-making.
And the last one was AoA PEARL. That sounded a bit different.
It is. AoA PEARL focuses on structuring knowledge about the processes involved in things like adaptive assessment, different learning strategies, and how to build responsible AI behavior, particularly in education.
So it's not about the subject matter, but how you teach or assess it.
Precisely. It needs ontologies that model things like different types of assessment questions, effective ways to give feedback, principles of ethical AI interaction in learning.
Where does that knowledge come from?
Research in educational psychology, learning sciences, AI ethics, plus expert knowledge in those fields, Omega helps structure this specialized knowledge.
And how does it relate to COREA?
The source notes they work together. COREA provides the what, the curriculum content. AoA PEARL provides the how to assess understanding of that content effectively, how to adapt the teaching strategy, how to ensure the AI behaves ethically. They complement each other.
Okay, so across all these different projects within CAFA.
Omega is acting as a key enabler. It's the technology that's dramatically speeding up the creation of the specific, structured knowledge base that each of these distinct AI applications really needs to function well.
Which brings us back to the big picture then. Omega is clearly a really vital strategic piece of the puzzle for the whole CAFA framework.
Absolutely. It directly addresses that huge practical bottleneck, the difficulty and cost of building robust ontology models, which has really held back the widespread use of ontology model-centered generation of OMG.
And it works through this intelligent fusion of capabilities.
Yeah.
You've got the power of AI models like LLMs doing the initial heavy lifting.
Combined with the absolutely essential critical thinking, the validation, the deep domain knowledge of human experts,
That synergy is key,
it's everything. It ensures the resulting knowledge structures are accurate, they're comprehensive, logically sound, and therefore trustworthy.
making them useful for machines and understandable for humans.
Exactly. So they're effective for powering AI, but also reliable enough for human experts to agree on and build upon. That's how Omega helps achieve the human-centric goals of OMG.
So by making it so much easier to build these foundational knowledge structures, Omega isn't just like a technical fix.
No, it's potentially much more than that. It could be the catalyst that really unlocks the vision behind initiatives like COREA, AGNES Peaks, AoA PEARL.
Paving the way for a new generation of AI that's not just smart, but also grounded, understandable, and genuinely helpful.
Which leaves us with a pretty interesting thought to chew on, doesn't it? If Omega, or approaches like it, really do make it significantly easier and faster to build these detailed, structured maps of knowledge for almost any field you can think of.
What kinds of questions, maybe previously impossible questions, could AI now help us answer?
Exactly. And what entirely new areas of understanding, what new kinds of human progress could this acceleration in structuring knowledge actually open up for us?